Hello and welcome to the Ivy League Sisters podcast, where you're invited into the world of high-achieving women who earned that coveted Ivy League degree and now are here to get real and honest about the pressures and expectations that come with claiming this achievement. I'm Lauren Beluchian, and I'm the founder of Ivy League Sisters, a mentorship community where intellectually curious and slightly rebellious women band together to support each other through the personal and professional seasons of life. In this podcast, we peel back the layers of perfection to reveal the authentic, often messy, and always inspiring stories of women who have been where you are. So whether you're an Ivy League graduate, a high achiever in any field, or simply someone striving to live a more authentic life, the Ivy League Sisters podcast is a place where you can realize you're not alone. And if you're new here, like and follow this podcast so you don't miss out on the latest episodes. I hope you enjoy the conversations. But what I think is a fun question to start with, especially for Ivy League women who we can be our own worst enemy and we can look at another woman and think, oh my gosh, she has it all together. Which, by the way, Rachel, I look at you on the Zoom screen right now. I'm like, ooh, she's got it all together. So it's interesting.
You didn't see me take a huge pile of stuff and move it into the other room. So no, not all together.
And I think that's such a, when we show our hot mess to, not necessarily to the world, but to the people where we feel comfortable enough and be honest about it. Like, how many times do you feel like you're just scrambling and like scotch taping things together and gluing things, metaphorically together, and then
duct tape every day of the week?
I mean, I just felt that even this morning. It was like, and I have a virtual background, but if you see my desk, which let's have some fun. Let me show you my desk. It's not all perfect, right? Like, there's a lot happening over here.
So, okay, you want to see mine?
Yes, let's have a standoff.
Because I was kind of laughing at the fact that it all looks like controlled, and then you'll see like my mess here. It like drives my husband crazy. There's more mess. There's like,
oh yeah, mess. You got the workout thing happening right there.
Oh yeah, I have like, I never need to leave this room because it's half office and it's half gym. Yeah. At least I rolled up my mat this morning, so you didn't see that. But no, I think it is always about that, like, how can we harness enough grace that we can be authentic and we show some of our mess, but not all of the mess.
And isn't that so? I mean, let's just unpack that for a second. Okay. That's a real challenge that I think many of us are like, that Goldilocks feeling of not too big, not too small, just right. And then who gets to define what is just right?
Yeah. And then, I'm sure you're in the same vein where for many years, we were not allowed to show that we had any mess, right? And we had to keep it like all under the rug. And then as the mess becomes part of the, my mess, see, actually you'll appreciate, I also have this as part of my mess, right?
Oh yeah.
This is straight from Oakland. So like,
say what it says for people who can't see.
Oh, this is great. It says Kamala Lotus to POTUS, and her name means lotus in Hindi.
Oh, I didn't know that extra touch. Oh, that's so beautiful.
These are being made by a friend of a friend in Oakland. So yeah, we all bought them here and we're bringing them to the East Coast. But I think getting back to, there is like, how much mess do you bring into the arena? And I think, I don't know about you, but I feel like I was very careful not to bring in the mess. And then some of the mess started to enter, and some people gravitate towards that and really are appreciative, and other people are still scared of it. And so there's this dance, like how honest can I be, and in what circles, and with whom, and at what age, or, there's so much there. And oftentimes I think we learn the hard way when we show up too much, or we're too
really exhausting. Yeah. When we are trying to find the right lever in the sweet spot in everyone else's sweet spot. And then I know the deeper part of ourselves, like, well, then you just be yourself, because when you're yourself, you don't have to keep trying that. But I think I'll speak for myself here. that feels really terrifying and scary, because the deep, deep, deep truth or fear there is, if I show up really fully myself, I'm going to be the polka dot colored like giraffe that nobody likes or wants. And then of course, to me, the next layer is, okay, but are you true to yourself? Like, then it's go back to a self-love thing, right? But it plays on this
Yes,
fear.
like in every it's funny because now because we're like talking about college and coming back to that, um I remember someone telling me what I should and shouldn't do in front of my roommate because do they really want to know all that? And then I kind of learned like everyone farts, everybody burps, like it's okay, it's human. And I
Right.
know I just brought it to a really crass point, but
Oh,
it is this like how much do we share? And obviously there's certain things you share in a professional setting and certain things that you don't. But that's really so much of who we are and trying to figure out that dance and that all the energy that, let's face it, so many of us spent from probably, I'd love to say until like 35, but no, it's like until yesterday and will probably be tomorrow, right?
yeah. And this whole, the work hat persona, I am grateful. I feel COVID kind of took that out, because people were having, we were coming into each other's homes until virtual backgrounds became a real big thing. But there was this level of intimacy of seeing someone beyond that facade that we often wear in our professional settings. And again, this is different for different people. Like, I know some people that are much prefer my work self, and I want to keep my personal self separate because that feels good to a person. For me, I want to be able to bring myself to all the different places as myself. And when I see someone else doing it, it gives me a lot more permission. So where do you fall on that?
So that's such an interesting question because I do love bringing my full self. And you saw one of the things I posted recently, was about we think sometimes we're bringing our full self. And as women, we think if I tell you everything that's on my mind, you're going to connect with something and like, I'm going to disarm you. And the reality is, I may not need to share all of that. Maybe not all the details, but I should be comfortable sharing the sentiment. So in our like redo, I could say, wow, I just had a really packed morning with a lot of different experiences and share some of the emotion. And then if the other person wants to ask more, then I'm happy to share. Um, but sometimes you don't need every last detail. And I think as I also start writing a little bit more and putting out in public, it's, I could say a lot in 5,000 words, but maybe I should really think about like the best 1,000 words that are most authentic, but aren't every last detail.
That
And
really,
it's really hard to draw that line.
it is. And it is not, I don't think it is a one size fits all, or it's a one formula thing, which is just the reality of it.
Yeah. And then I think there's also this part of me that wants to show up and be in the room. And I naturally am more the surveyor of the scene before I jump in. And so it's trying to figure out what is that right balance between being fully in and showing I'm fully in and participating, but not taking up too much of the spotlight. Right? Because like you have a full life. You've got 4 kids. Like you have like I have 3 kids, and I can tell you that each one is going through a major life transition right now. And so that in and of itself, there's not one dull moment in our under our roof. And so before I even get to anything professional, I can keep someone going for stories for hours. And I have to make sure that they don't always want to hear everything, even though I'm loving to share.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
it does make sense. There's a discernment there. And there is a level of reading a moment in a situation. So there's a level of EQ that has to happen, and trusting, also like getting out of our head, and then sometimes just playing with what is in the moment itself without trying. Like, it's interesting, different circumstances and situations invite a different part of ourselves to be expressed.
Yeah. It's like you want to be the best all-around athlete or like a really strong all-around athlete, but you might not be a like specific position because you have to read the room and know what type of story do you tell, how many, how emotional versus
Oh,
factual.
I'm getting overwhelmed, Rachel. Just feeling all that because there's so much truth in it. When I start to get into this space with myself, I'm like, oh, like it makes me speechless, I guess.
And then you just say, oh, you should just relax, right?
Yeah. Shake it off. Shake it off. Well, I want to hear about some of the stuff you do with your work and with women and your passion for, you are a great listener of others' stories. And you're building an amazing collection of these different stories. So speak into a little bit, like first, how did that all begin and why? Why do you care?
Why do I care? So I go back to my childhood, and I lived within a half hour of all four of my grandparents. And so oftentimes you think about a family, like extended family, everyone's moved away. On both sides of my family, my parents were the only local child or cousin who was there. And so the next generation, who were most of my parents' age and my grandparents' generation, would come and they would visit. And one of my grandmothers in particular would always have a big, whether it's a big Shabbat dinner or like some meal, and everyone would come to the table. And we were the ones who were around, so we would show up. And everybody who came, whether it was a relative or an old friend, and there was a bit of like, you show up because we want to show you off. So if you think about what roles we play and things like that, there was a lot of, trying to live up to expectation and showing that you fit the family mold in the nicest way possible, but there's pressure there. But everyone had a story. And finding sometimes that connective tissue among the people who were at the table, it was really interesting. And it was expected that we would sit at the table from the time we, started until, we didn't leave to go watch TV or to, do any, certainly there were no phones or anything like
I was
that.
going to say that we know what our kids now do, but it was
Exactly. So we would sit for hours talking. And I grew up 30 minutes from Scranton, Scranton, Pennsylvania, which from a political standpoint is like right where it's the center of the country. And I grew up in a really socioeconomically, educationally, like pretty like diverse community.
Yeah.
And I think if I hadn't really had that beginning of my life, that when I got to Dartmouth, and I was around a lot of like-minded peers and, but diverse, but, everyone was there. And at that time, everyone was like headed, they were gunning it.
Gunning it towards like college?
Towards like the next thing, right? Like
Whatever the next thing was.
there's a lot of energy, like we're going. But I think I learned how to listen at a young age, and I learned how to appreciate that everyone had a story. And that's become my MO through life, is just really trying to understand the people around me and knowing when to talk and really when to listen. And as over the past, really, I think it was throughout my career, and I know exactly where I was when I conceived the idea, but there is so much to be gained from the people who have been through what we are now living through. And even though sometimes we feel like we're the first one to have this set of circumstances, there are a lot of people who've done a lot of the types of things that we have, and the juggling and the, this and that. And so,
can you bring me to this moment when you said you can remember where you were when you conceived the idea?
well, so let me tell you why I think now is the moment that it's extra, and then I'll go back and I'll tell you when it was. It was, so as we live in this more hybrid, diverse, dispersed environment, so whether you're separated from the people you're working with by geography or by medium, so that you're remote first, or you are hybrid, or you never really even see, you're never face to face in person with the people you work with at all, there's it, we're connected. We are very much connected, but we don't know each other that well. And for young people who are starting out in their careers, or people who may have been in office full time for a couple of years, and now their lives have progressed, right? Their lives have changed, and they don't have as much proximity to the people who are a few years older than they are. And we've lost some of that. It's not just that there isn't someone you can go to, but seeing a variety of different lived examples And I think particularly for women, and a lot of the people in your world, these are people who were running from the time, in most cases, right? Until like from the time that they were young. And they were always one step ahead of everyone else. And I'm sure you agree that all of a sudden we got to a point where you might be able to do really well in the test. You might be able to give a good presentation, but in between the time you wake up and you give that presentation, you have to get breakfast on, feed everybody, make sure they're dressed, make sure they know where they're going after school and that childcare is arranged. And you're also the connection of your family to your greater community. So you take on these projects because in your heart you say it's the right thing to do. And then you're like, oh my God, why am I doing all these things? And any one of those roles is a full-time role. And now you're trying to dial up and down all the things. And it's helpful to talk to someone who's been through it and not just one person. And sometimes it's not your mom or your older sister. It's you are you and you are connected to them, but you are your own person. And it's helpful to have a number of examples. And I think that many young people don't have as much access to those stories. And at the same time, technology has kind of put us with people who are like us, right? Like we have these communities. So we don't have as much access to people who are going to call bullshit on what we're doing or really push us sometimes the way that we need to. And I think really it's important for everyone, and particularly women, to surround themselves with a variety of lived examples from which they can help to form their own self-definition. Um,
So how do you find that then?
some of it is about listening, right? It's about listening to all the people around you and really seeking to get to know people, and being comfortable asking the questions. Um, I think that's at the simplest level, but it's also being ready to also be vulnerable so that whether it's the older and wiser who's imparting the knowledge, being able to be comfortable with themselves, or it's the younger person who's curious and someone has to set the stage for that. And so in many cases, and a lot of the work that I'm doing and that I'm just so passionate about is how can we get enough people to be vulnerable, to tell their stories in a way that I'm not carrying all of them, but that they can be connected to younger people who are going through those stages of life, and how balancing that or harmonizing the work and the life, asking those hard questions and knowing that other people have asked those questions and have discovered things about themselves and about just what it takes, is kind of the beauty of it.
Oh, it is so relieving to me when there is someone that is who I look up to, kind of has that mentor role, and they're either making themselves available to ask, like, what's really going on, Lauren? Like, and I can feel that they're listening, or they're offering something that is really that they've gone through, or that they can remember back when they were my age. And it's so like to your point, it creates such a level of deep connection that we are lacking here in the way we converse with people. I mean, I'm just thinking of, I go to a lot of soccer games and hockey games and this and that, and it's so easy for, hey, how's it going? And it's just all here at the surface. You're complaining about the next drop off you're doing, you're talking about how busy you are, you're whatever, maybe talking about some health thing that's happening with your parents, but it's like going that next layer to have that conversation. It's rare. And I also feel, I don't know about you, Rachel, if you've seen this, but in those kind of day-to-day conversations, there's a lot of humor that gets put out there to use as a deflection.
But yes, like humor is such a deflection, and some of the
There's a lot
yeah,
of sarcasm.
tons of sarcasm, tons of just finding really going in and harping on a detail that can move everyone away from what's really going on. Um, and that makes it easier, because when we talk about what's really going on, that's hard. I don't know about you, but how many times you also catch up with a friend and you go through how everyone in their family is doing. And then you might even talk about work a little bit. And then at the end of it, which is so wrong, you're like, and how are you? And it's like, oh, actually, like, I gotta go. I have something, somewhere to be. And so, yeah, I think we don't talk enough
Or
about
I
what's
hear a lot of the I'm fine. It's okay. Like the voice, I'm fine. It's okay. It's all good. And I can always kind of feel though, I'm trying to feel out like, is that I'm like, I don't feel like I'm not bought in. But secondly, like there is sometimes I can feel though that there's and don't please push past this. Like there's this protective of if we really slow it down, a couple more beats, the tears are like right
I can cry with the best of them, and it doesn't take much. In fact, my family laughs a ton at me because I can just, like tears are there, and they can be happy tears. They can be, just, and they're not always tears of sadness. It might just be tears of, I am embodying so many emotions right now that my innate, some people get angry. I cry.
there. Oh, me too, Rachel.
I could cry right now, right?
I think we could both just sit here and be like, because there's just such like to me there's just such a humanity like in this moment of like deep reverence and deep like I see you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I cry with my clients sometimes. Like they'll be talking about something, and sometimes there just aren't. I feel you. Like sometimes there just aren't words, and just my eyes filling up just shows like I feel you. And sometimes we don't need to address everything. We just need to let it out.
I don't know how you feel about this phrasing, but what is coming up so clear for me in this moment is that divine feminine that doesn't always have words. And I would love for you to speak into this because I feel that with me and you and probably a lot of other women that are Ivy Leaguers, like our divine masculine or our masculine has been in overdrive and does a lot and gets a lot done. But what I'm feeling in this moment where if we just slow down, we don't even use the words, we just feel, it's like our divine feminine is smiling.
Yeah. I feel like for so many years, and I won't say it's all gone. I loved the fact that I was juggling 1,000 things. Like I thrived on that energy.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
There's a little adrenaline, right? There's that superwoman, like I know it too. Ooh, it's a totally different vibe, but yes.
it's amazing. Like how many hats can I wear in a day, and how can I experience like every emotion and everything? And I am not one who sits still innately, and I have learned to appreciate when I can and prioritize
Mm.
that and actually go ahead with it, right? Because there's so much to be said for like just stop doing and just start being, but that isn't how we were innately programmed.
Right. And that's not typically what we are or success is measured around. Like when you're talking about your family and wanting to have the family there to kind of there's a little bit of a sense of pride in what you're doing. I know that like similarly my family would have that same sort of like what are you up to, what are you doing, what have you accomplished, and to just be more present in there is such a it's such a different way of operating. Really slow things down to make that space for because it feels good. No one's gonna do it for, but it feels really good. Even
When you down and you journal, like I will sit with my journal, which is over here, and I'll say, 10 minutes. And when you ever done at 10 minutes, right? Because it's when I actually sit down and just let myself like write or think or just be, it feels so good. Like I want 10 more minutes.
Mm.
Or just being caught, like allowing myself to be in a conversation and just in the moment. I think that's the other thing is I was probably one of the first adopters of an Apple Watch. It became this way that if my phone wasn't physically attached to me, I was always reachable for, the nanny or, my kids when I was, at work. And then I became very focused on the number of calories I burn in a day, right? And I will admit, like, a little bit crazy that if I was within 50 calories of the goal, like I would, every so often have been known to do some jumping jacks at 11:30 at night, right? So this summer when we were away and we were on a boat, and I knew that I was getting plenty of exercise. A lot of it was swimming, and I knew you can, but I wouldn't wear my watch in the water. So I was like, I'm never going to get the calories. And why should I be on vacation feeling bad about myself because I haven't hit my goal? And I stopped wearing my watch. And it was amazing. I have found I am so much more focused. I am so much more able to just listen to people and be in the conversation. And there's part of me that's, I want to go back because I want to make sure I'm, doing, getting the exercise and standing enough and doing all the things. But it's been really nice to, in that one way, because I'm still connected everywhere, right? Here we are, like you can reach me 1,000 different ways, but even just that one thing has made a really big difference over the past couple months.
Wow. What an unexpected thing that gave you that awareness. Yeah. That's where when we try different things, we learn something about ourselves, right? That our programming might first kick and scream or think that's a ridiculous idea, but it reveals something. Sounds like it's revealing something.
100%. And I own it. Like I own that that's like my form of crazy. And we all have, like, I feel like you don't get to a certain age and not have some bit of,
Yeah.
we'll call it, maybe it's not crazy, but it's like everyone has some
idiosyncrasy or hang up or thing, nuance
exactly.
yeah.
So and part of it is, I think, in that just really being human is that self-awareness to know what your idiosyncrasy is or are,
Really.
because let's face it, I'd love to say there's only one.
And then that's also what I mean, the more I get to know people that share these nuances and idiosyncrasies,
Random story.
quirks, the more
That was the word I was thinking of.
Quirks. Yeah. I love that because to me that creates real connection where I can see a person and then it naturally gives me permission from whatever my little quirky thing is. And we can laugh about it. Like I'm doing the thing. You're doing the thing.
Because I think, and that's where so much of what you've done, which is really powerful, is to recognize that so many of us have spent years just on the treadmill, right? And we were fortunate that we were able to get onto it early, right? It was easy to get on the ramp. And it's really hard to either sustain it or decide that you need to make a change.
Yeah, that's an uncomfortable place to be.
Yeah.
Is to decide that. And what is it going to look like? And am I going back to the polka dotted giraffe? Am I going to be like totally left alone if I get off this thing that I know is not doing me well? But at least it's like we know what is the expression? It's kind of we stay where we're safe even when it's not good for us. Like there's so many statistics of people staying in relationships. At least I know that discomfort. At least it's people like to stay in the pain that they know.
Yeah.
Because the fear of the unknown almost is worse than the fear
devil you know versus the devil you don't, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Will you speak into the Jewel project?
Of course I will. What do you want to know?
Well, what is it?
So Jewel, which becomes my, hopefully not overused and acronym, is joining and empowering women in the exploration of lived experience, or joining and emboldening women in the exploration of lived experience. And it's really a focus on women leaders, and really understanding their stories in a way that can be recorded, can be studied, and can be shared in a productive sense with younger and mid-career women for career and really life, career support, life navigation, you name it. And my vision is that this becomes a really transformative force that really helps create intergenerational learning, where when I say intergenerational, I mean it in a very textbook sense of doesn't need to be your mother, but a generation is really like 17 or 18 years. And so that those people who have been through what you've been through and being able to hear those stories and to find, for younger women to find meaning. So my ultimate vision is to build this jewel box of stories that
Oh,
if your 30-year-old self is making a major career or minor career decision or dealing with family circumstances or deciding whether to join a board or not, or take a risk, can be various things that they can really tap into, not just one story of what someone did, but multitude of stories so that they can create personal meaning. And that those stories can come alive, whether it's in writing um, or in events where you can bring people together and share some of these themes and share create a common theme and have a few different people, or even like a dyad of people, like really bringing to life some of those things that just aren't talked about, whether it's about how life kind of unfolds or whether it's how the workplace really works, because there's a lot that we learned in school, and then there's a lot that happens that we never, no
oh,
one ever
yeah.
really told us.
There's so much that transfer of wisdom and knowledge that we've lost in the way our culture and society is structured now. Like, generations, hundreds of years ago, we were in villages and we were sharing and we were storytelling and we were together gathering all day long with the children. And there was grandma and auntie and, your daughter who was there helping, and hearing all of this just sharing of life experiences. And you compare that to how we live today, and particularly in our society. We just recently had my husband's mom staying with us because she just had hip surgery just for a couple of days, and she had hip replacement. I mean, a knee replacement. And we were talking about how she was like, "Okay, I'm going to get back to my house. I'm out of your hair. I don't want to bother you." And we were thinking about how even in other cultures today, there's just so much more of grandma comes at some point in life, she's back around living in the house again. And that in our society, it's all about like almost if we can, they throw money at the problem. How can we keep that person's independence? And how can we afford to have them be in the nursing home? And it's just
And
so
everything's fine.
everything's fine. And it's so not fine, right? We're hearing that with the sandwich generation of, anyway, what you're doing, Rachel, is so, so valuable. And when you said the imagery of opening up a jewel box, to me, I just can bring myself back to just 5 years ago when I was going through my divorce. And I didn't know I was going to be going through a divorce. I just knew that my life was going to change dramatically or something big was happening. And I had no friends that were going through that. And I had no one I could look to. And I just remember wishing there was a jewel box of hearing women who have survived that and are thriving from that. And that would have been such gold for me.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah,
And when we just
that
want to privately explore those stories without, like, when I was in a very tender spot where I didn't know what was going to happen. I actually wanted the marriage to work. And so seeing women who have said like, they're just all the, like, to your point, it's not just, we don't want just one woman. You want to be able to dive in and see all these different ways people have navigated their different paths.
right, because what if you say, I like the way this woman was able to persevere at work, and then I like how this one helped like her daughter see what was happening, and then someone else had a really good strategy for parenting boys through it, and this one
Right.
found friends and nurtured herself. And so, if there was one solution or one like textbook way to get from college to, I don't know, retirement, like it would be easy. We would all be doing it. And the reality is, we're not machines, we're not robots, and we're all different. We're a product of our experiences. We are every bit of like where you've been and who you've interacted with, positively and negatively. So if you had like this way to just get a little bit from a lot of people, and to your point, sometimes you want to engage with those people, but sometimes you just want to put on a Spotify playlist and like, hear one after another and be like, I'm going to be okay. Or this is really like, this is hard and it's okay because it's not that it even needs to be okay, but I'm not the only one who saw this as hard.
Yes.
And I think having that, a lot of like my stories are steeped in work and in life. Because my clients come from like, a lot of like work situations, whether they're coming to me on their own or they're coming to me through their employer. And it's, it's holding those two truths that we can be tough and goal oriented and achievement oriented when we need to be. And we can also be like, we can listen, we can empathize, we can be human. That it's it's like holding both sides and more, at any moment.
And I think a lot of times our society makes it feel like it is an or they're in conflict with each other. So then we subconsciously or consciously feel like we have to pick one.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing you're doing is you're telling those stories and you're showing it's possible to be in that balance. And that balance is not
really, it's never a balance like that's this, right? It's like
it's a dance. Back to our dance.
Yes, we're dancing. That's what it is. And I love using some of these stories with my clients too, because sometimes when you're really stuck, and I can say, because it's not my story, it's someone else's story, but it can be illustrative and it might just provide a new perspective about a way to think about something.
Yeah. Is there a place where we can hear these stories? Or is it not yet?
It's not yet, and it's hopefully soon, is thinking initially starting with really some it's like some fireside chats or things like that where we can come together and just hear them, and probably about 50 people who contributed to the research so far. And while there's a tremendous variety, it's not quite at the scale that you could pull like the numbers that I would like to. So it's very much work in progress. And I try and share, after I've interviewed people or when I'm working on something, so I've shared a lot of them, as you've seen on Instagram, which is our Wexler Leadership. And also I launched my blog you saw yesterday. So those are some more integrated pieces where I'm pulling together themes, things that might need a few minutes to tell, as opposed to the whatever, like trying to get it in under like 50 seconds of, story.
Everything's more concise, more, right? Oh, it's hard. Yeah.
It's so hard because it's in the detail, right? It's that same amount, like how much do you share? Because the buildup, the situation setting is,
yeah, we're back to just wanting to get everything so trimmed down and so efficient.
In a bow, like in the box, right? And
I believe like
messy.
Women want to wander and feel they have the space to take up space and talk and not feel like I have to get my words in a short amount of time. I mean, I just noticed when we create spaces where there's room, truly room, where women feels I can breathe. I don't have my thoughts all cohered. And I can relax. Like there's just so much more there, creativity, and we don't always have everything all buttoned up and perfect and ready to roll.
No.
Okay, I like to finish these with these 3 questions. So the fun of it is not, really letting what comes to your heart be what speaks through your mouth. And the first question is, between people pleasing, perfectionism, and imposter syndrome, which is the biggest thorn on your rose bush?
People pleasing.
And what is a lie that you still catch yourself saying to yourself?
Probably, all the, I said that people pleasing was was my biggest thorn, but still just the lie of you're not good enough or you haven't done enough. Not enough.
Right. And then right on the other side of that coin is the don't be too much. Don't be too much.
Enough. Totally. I had one too.
It's one of those like things that you get on the envelopes for cards.
Oh, I do have them. It's pretty close.
There you go. Awesome. Okay, last question is like, what is something that's just a little bit edgy or alive in your life that you feel this is the moment to speak it?
Gosh, that's a hard one. Say it again.
Like, what's something that's just bubbling or edgy, like it's like, oh, it kind of gets me a little, or juicy or alive in your life that maybe you can keeping it a little bit closer to your chest, but you're like, you know what? I'm going to bring some words around it.
I feel like I'm bringing to life all of the things that have been like bubbling up inside of me for so long. And you had asked, like, when was this conceived? And so this is kind of embarrassing. When I was a kid and I would get scared, I was home alone or whatever, I would talk to myself. And then as an adult, you learn most people talk to themselves. And in my last kind of like leadership, formal leadership role, we had an office that was about 5 hours away, and there wasn't a train or a plane. The easiest way to get there was literally to drive. And so I would have these conversations like with myself in the car because I was, trying to stay awake. And I was also trying to put to words so many of the things that I was seeing in the workplace and seeing, a lot of young people and particularly women, because I so want to be an advocate for women. And I would have these conversations, and that's really where Jewel came out of. I remember like using the first version of a voice recorder, being like, these are the questions I would ask, and then I had to like make my own answers. And we're talking like I was in my 40s. It's not like I was a kid. But so now I feel as though I have these stories, like I'm hearing these stories, I'm hearing these themes that are like the thread that is being sewn across and through these stories. And so it's bubbling to the surface. And I feel like I have a lot to say about what people live through, how they've put frameworks around things, how they have tried to impart some of their wisdom to their daughters or to some of their mentees. But there's so much lived wisdom that just like we used to have, everyone used to read the local newspaper and you would see the local hero. And that person has kind of gotten lost in coverage. And we see so much about like CEOs and Hollywood actresses. And instead of looking at the regional standout, we hear about the Hollywood actress and media makes them like us. And so we don't get as much of that. Here's a person who's doing pretty well and they're struggling too, or here's how they get through it. And with all due respect to some of the most successful personalities, and name brand people, like, names that everyone would notice, there's a lot of really true lived experience, and we're so much more connected than we think. And so when you ask, what is it? It's like those kinds of things that I have so much at my, like right here in my mouth, and I want to share it all.
I feel that so much as you're expressing it, just this boom, like blooming that's happening as you share and you speak. Blooming. It truly felt like these buds forming, garden created, gems sparkling in the sun.
Who doesn't want a nice gem, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. My daughter has this like really fun gem. My girls are into collecting gems right now and I just love it. Yeah, I have my own little crystal area that I put them in the moon bath on full moons. Yes.
Yes. Like we all want like a little bit of that sparkle.
Oh, absolutely. Right? This has been so fun. Thank you for sharing your story and just wandering and exploring and not having
a lot of ground.
We went a lot of different places, and who would have known, right, where we were going and what we had dug up through our conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving me the space and for just going on the journey with me. It's fun. I will see you soon.
Okay, bye. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you'd like to be in contact with our community, you can find us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Ivy League Sisters, or visit our website at ivyleaguesisters.com. And if you found this conversation valuable, I invite you to share it with another woman, another friend, another loved one, because it's through our sharing that we inspire one another and deepen our connections. Until next time, remember, you're not alone. We are in this crazy thing called life together.